Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Stephanie.
I'm Tom, and we're continuing to talk about playing with fire on TLC. More specifically, this is a television show on TLC. And the title of the program is Food Safari Fire. It's all about finding food and especially focusing on fire and how it has been used to cook food over centuries.
That's right. And just a quick review, we learned that early humans started using fire 400,000 years ago. They used it to cook meat, which helped kill harmful bacteria that would have made them sick. And it made starchy plants like potatoes and corn more enjoyable, edible, which means you can eat them. And it allowed them to dry and store food because sometimes they couldn't farm. It might have been winter. You can't farm when it's cold and snowing. And they may have been unable to hunt for meat. So fire actually helped them store food for during winter, I'm sure. And we also talked about Maeve's first stop being in Hobart. It's the capital of Tasmania. She met up with Rodney Dunn, and they did a little cooking, which sounded really quite delicious.
Yeah, he cooked some pork there over the coals of a large fire and did some steaming and buried it underneath the coals or something like that. So it sounded like quite an interesting way to cook pork. I'm sure it was very tasty indeed. Well, today we're going to talk about some more things that Maeve discovers on this program. So let's get to it, everybody. Let's read the entire contents of today's lesson, and then let's talk about it. Heavenly as Rodney's rustic home-cooked fare is, it's merely the tip of the iceberg on Maeve's Australian food expedition. Next, she's off to Melbourne, a bustling city jam-packed with street food vendors, all of whom rely on fire to bring their culinary delights to the masses. Melbourne's got everything from Mexican tacos to Malaysian satay, but tender, juicy Greek souvlaki is what Maeve is after. At Calamera Souvlaki Art, Thomas Deliopoulos believes the secret to a perfect kebab is in the charcoal, which gives the meat its smoky taste. Skewered pork or chicken is continually flipped over the fire to keep it juicy. It's then wrapped in a soft, warm pita covered in tzatziki, a sauce made with yogurt, cucumber, and garlic, and topped with tomatoes and onions. With a sprinkle of salt and oregano, this mouth-watering meal is ready to be devoured. When it comes to baking, wood-fired ovens guarantee quality every time. Artisan baker Joost Hilkemeyer uses a specially crafted brick oven that retains its heat for several hours after the fire is extinguished. Joost's Bakery in the village of Barry, New South Wales, is famous for its sourdough bread. His sourdough recipe is simple, requiring nothing more than flour, water, and salt. The dough ferments for some time to produce the naturally occurring yeast that will help it rise. Joost shapes the dough into loaves once it's ready. He then makes small cuts at the top, allowing the dough to rise without cracking. After 15 to 20 minutes in the oven, the loaves have a golden brown crust and a fluffy light interior. Maeve relishes the tantalizing smell of the freshly baked bread before hungrily polishing it off. To see more of Maeve's fiery food adventures, tune into TLC's Food Safari Fire.
Okay, guys, we're going to be talking about day 2 of our Playing with Fire on TLC unit. Now, we're describing Rodney Dunn's cooking and the dishes he produced as being heavenly. If it's heavenly, it just means it's really great. It's divine. Oh, it's heavenly. I think they used to use this word a lot more in like the 1800s and the 1900s. Oh, it's heavenly. But it's cute. It's very wonderful. It pleases you. It's heavenly. It's probably pretty tasty, too.
It probably is. I did want to notice here in the first part of this sentence that we've got the be verb toward the end here. Heavenly as his rustic home-cooked fare is. Basically, that means Although his food is heavenly, although his rustic home-cooked meals are heavenly, it's merely the tip of the iceberg. Okay, so yes, it is true that his home-cooked fare, his home-cooked food is rustic and it's heavenly, but still, it's just the start. It's just the tip of the iceberg. When we talk about the tip of the iceberg, it means that's just the small part of something. And usually icebergs, those pieces of ice that are floating in the ocean, you can only see a very small part, maybe 1/10 or something. The rest of it is in the water and you can't see it.
But even though that food is quite delicious, it's really just the start of this expedition they're on, the food expedition. If it's rustic, we use rustic to describe charming little cottages in the woods, you know, kind of wonderful, not very sophisticated. And of course, we know how he cooked it, and so it wasn't cooked in a very sophisticated way. Fare, as Tom said, is food. We use it to talk about a range of food, especially of a particular type, like cuisine would be used the same way. Home-cooked cuisine, home-cooked fare. It's merely the tip of the iceberg. They've got a lot more excitement on their journey. Now, an expedition is when you kind of take a journey that is filled with excitement. Maybe you're going to a new area you've never seen before. Well, Maeve is off on an adventure to see how fire is used to cook food. Where's she going next? Melbourne.
Melbourne, right.
Yeah.
That's another city in Australia. It's not the one with the Opera House. That, of course, is in Sydney. Melbourne is something else. She's going to Melbourne, and it's also being described here as a bustling city jam-packed with street food vendors, all of whom rely on fire to bring their culinary delights to the masses. So Melbourne is a bustling city. Bustling means there's all sorts of activity, lots of people, lots of traffic, lots of noise, and it's jam-packed with street food vendors. Jam-packed means you've got them all over the place. Packed means you put a lot of things in a small place. Street food vendors, of course, are people who sell food on the street, maybe from food stands or from food trucks, perhaps. I don't know if they have food trucks.
Oh, yeah, they do.
In Australia, I guess they would.
In fact, Melbourne is supposed to be Australia's premier city for food. Not Sydney,
okay.
Melbourne.
Okay, Melbourne.
Yeah.
If you want to have something tasty to eat, head to Melbourne. And all of these vendors, people who sell food, they rely on fire to bring their culinary delights to the masses. To rely on means to depend on something. You have to have it. They can't cook their food unless they have fire.
Yeah. And we use culinary as an adjective to describe food or cuisine. And a delight here is being used as a noun, something that's really wonderful, that's pleasing to you. And the masses just refers to lots and lots and lots of people. So it's a great place to go if you love good food. Now, Melbourne's got everything from Mexican tacos. So those tacos, they come from Mexico, the country of Mexico. I think that's probably my favorite food is tacos. That is a corn tortilla that's folded in half with meat and other things inside. And then Malaysia is famous for the satay, which is meat on a stick that has a wonderful sauce on it. And I think it's grilled. It's tender. And then you've got juicy Greek souvlaki, which is wonderful. I love that food. And this is all what Maeve is after. So she's got everything from tacos to satay. That's a range of food. But tender, juicy Greek souvlaki is what Maeve is after. That's really what she's trying to find, is souvlaki.
That's what she is after. That just means that's what you're looking for. That's what you want.
Yeah.
And let's go to Calamara Souvlaki Art. And we've got, I guess, the owner there, or a chef there by the name of Thomas Deliopoulos. That's a Greek name if I've ever seen one.
I know.
He believes.
You see, any name with Los, Poulos, yeah.
Poulos at the end, indeed. And he believes the secret to a perfect kebab is in the charcoal. Kebab here is, again, similar here. I guess kebab is also a piece of meat that is roasted or grilled on a skewer or maybe a grill or something like that. I'm not quite sure, but I guess
they're always on a stick. I've seen, the only ones I've seen are kebabs are on sticks.
So we're talking about some foods here that are cooked on sticks, except for the tacos. Those would be in tortillas, but satay and souvlaki and kebabs are all cooked on skewers or sticks, just like you cook food at your mid-autumn barbecues here in Taiwan.
They do that here,
You would cook those on skewers or little wooden sticks. I guess they'd be made out of bamboo here. But he thinks the secret to a perfect kebab is the charcoal, which is the... how would you describe charcoal? Little pieces of coal.
Coal that are really black. And when you light them, they look really pretty and then they burn down to gray and sometimes they're reddish in color. So charcoal, yeah. And it does give the meat a really great taste. It's smoky. Skewered means when you take that meat and you use that stick and you run it through the meat, it's skewered. And they use pork or chicken and it's continually flipped over the fire to keep it juicy. Nothing's better than juicy grilled meat. Oh my gosh. If you flip something, you turn it over. For example, if you're cooking a hamburger or even a pancake for breakfast, you cook one side and then you flip it over and you cook the other side. So it's a very sudden movement. You go flip it.
Turn it from one side to the other, and then it's wrapped in a soft, warm pita covered in tzatziki, which is a sauce of yogurt, cucumber, and garlic mixed together. Pita, of course, is a kind of flat bread. It can kind of be cut open, so you can put stuff inside
it. Like a pocket?
Yeah, like a pocket, indeed. And then the sauce is called tzatziki. It's made with yogurt and cucumber, which is a kind of green vegetable, and garlic, of course. And then on top of all that, you put some tomatoes and onions. And then after that, you've got a sprinkle of salt, which is just a little bit of salt sprinkled on top. You sprinkle things like powder or salt or pepper on top of things. Oregano is a very common kind of spice that is used in Italian cooking a lot.
Yeah.
I put oregano on my pizza quite often. And this mouth-watering meal is ready to be devoured. If it's mouth-watering, it's so tasty, it looks so wonderful that it makes you salivate. It makes your mouth water. And if you devour something, you eat it with great pleasure and you do it pretty quickly. You take big bites and you probably make grunting sounds like nom, 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 nom.
Yeah, I think of an alligator or maybe a bear, killing their prey and then devouring it, just biting into it. And sometimes you're really hungry and the food's good and you look like a pig eating it. Right now, someone who always looks graceful eating is our Chinese teacher. Let's listen.
Hi everyone, my name is Jenny. 我们今天继续来看这个节目内容。这个节目在 TLC 频道上要播出的，叫做火烤料理大冒险。好，从这个名字看得出来，谈食物，谈火。那我们说过，主持人呢会带领大家到各地，然后去看看用火来料理食物这个过程。那之前提到了第一站，它是在 Hobart 这个城市，而今天呢，我们要继续看。主持人他说到，哇，除了这个 Rodney 他刚之前做出来的这样的料理之外，还有别的地方。这次他要带大家到 Melbourne 墨尔本。到墨尔本这里，他说墨尔本这里有很多的 street food， 也就是所谓的街头食物，就像我们摆夜摊一样，我们夜市的摊位一样，这里有很多那当然各种食物都有，不管是墨西哥卷饼或者是沙爹，通通都有。不过我们来看一下这边其实有一个重点我们要先提。这一段的内容里头，他提到 Heavenly as Rodney's rustic home-cooked fare is. Heavenly 这个形容词放在句首，后面再加一个 as， 整个看起来就是一个不同于一般主词动词顺序的结构。其实这是一个倒装句，当然这个倒装句型跟 as 有很大的关系。as 这个字它如果放在倒装句里，其实它就是等于 though， 也就是虽然。这个字我们可以用倒装句型来写，你就要把 原来句子里面它的形容词放到前面，也就是补语位置上的形容词，当然也有时候是个名词，放到句首，然后再写 as。整句前面的意思就是，虽然 Rodney 他的料理非常的美味，不过……好，这只是句构上最特别的地方。那还有一点就是，我们说他带大家到墨尔本，然后墨尔本这里有很多的街头食物，好，有很多的摊贩，而后面这里逗点接着的 all of whom rely on fire to bring their culinary delights to the masses。 这个逗点后面的 all of whom 我们也不陌生，我们知道这种句构其实它用到的还是一个关系代名词的含义，不过它前面加一个 all 这种不定代名词，然后呢，整个的结构上它是用补数的用法，非限定用法，也就是用来接着前面的 vendors。 换句话说，这前面谈的摊贩，那他们全部都是用火然后来料理的。好，这个地方 all of whom 为什么一定要用 whom 呢？就文法的解释来说，其实是因为这前后两句一定要有个连接词，如果你没有连接词的话，你一定要用关代，这样才有连接前后两句话的功能，不然的话你也可以用 and 然后写成 and all of them rely on。 那这段接下来还说到，到墨尔本来，其实他真的要找的是希腊串烧卷饼。他说到这个卷饼 is what she's after。 好，那这个 what 要注意到，就用法来说，我们称它为复合关代。那其实它本身当连接词引导后面这个子句，可是这一整个子句又在这个大句子里面当做be 动词后面的补语，当做它的补语用，所以两种功能，所以这种复合关代一定要特别注意。接下来下面这段就说到了我们到墨尔本来，他说要找这个希腊串烧烧饼，然后这个主厨这边的厨师他认为这种烤肉串烧它的秘诀在于木炭。好，提到秘诀 the secret to something， 记得这个 to 是介系词哦，什么什么的秘方秘诀。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Okay, everybody, let's continue with our lesson about food, safari, fire, and our own quest for fire. We are playing with fire on TLC on this program. We've got the hostess, and she's down in Australia, and she's talking to various people there. She was talking to Rodney Dunn in Tasmania, and where we left off, she was talking to Thomas Deliopoulos.And he's talking about kebabs and stuff like that. Well, now let's talk about baking, okay?
Cool.
That's when you cook things in an oven, especially breads and pastries and things like that. So when it comes to baking, wood-fired ovens guarantee quality every time. Now, we've all got ovens. Well, maybe not. Maybe people in Taiwan don't really do a lot of baking at home. You've got stoves with open flames.
Yeah.
Ovens are like boxes that are enclosed, and usually they are heated with gas flames.
Yeah, more and more of my friends here, though, in Taiwan are getting ovens because they're getting used to eating baked goods, you know. More and more bakeries have been opening here as well.
It's true, yes. Yeah. Ovens are becoming more and more common, but in this particular case, it's a wood-fired oven. So
Yay.
The flame or the fire for the oven is actually produced by burning wood.
Yeah, these are great. And if you go to some really great pizza shops, they use wood-fire ovens. They're great. Now, we're talking about a guy who is an artisan. An artisan is a word we use to describe people who are very artistic and talented in what they produce. Usually you'll see artisan bread, artisan cheeses, you know, lots of different kinds of cheese is produced by these artisans. And this is a baker whose name is kind of weird. Tom, how do you say it?
Joost Hilkemeyer. That
Hilkemeyer.
could be Dutch. I'm not quite sure. But
I think that's a good guess.
Does sound like
Joost
a Dutch
Hilkemeyer.
name. But he's a baker, okay.
Yeah.
And I assume this is a guy, too. He uses a specially crafted brick oven that retains its heat for several hours after the fire is extinguished. So it retains the heat. It keeps the heat even after the wood has burned out. And Joost's Bakery in the village of Barry, New South Wales, that's in Australia, is famous for its sourdough bread.
Oh,
okay,
yum.
I'm not really too keen on bread. I grew up eating Wonder Bread, which is this really sweet white bread.
Sourdough's my favorite.
Sourdough, yeah.
And
I
it's
guess
impossible
it's sour,
to
right?
find here. It's got a little sourness to it because they use fermented dough. If it's fermented, it's left out, and it sounds like it just kind of spoils, goes rotten, but that's not really true. There was one time I was able to buy sourdough bread, maybe like a year ago, but it's disappeared. I love it. Do you know what's hard about sourdough bread is that you have to always have a little piece of dough to go from, you can never run out of that fermented dough. If you do, you can't make it. So it's a little tiny piece of fermented dough that you use for each batch of bread. So this sourdough is really popular, especially in San Francisco. They're known for their sourdough bread. And this recipe is simple, it says. It requires nothing more than flour, water, and salt. But the trick is to get the dough to ferment, which typically, what do we ferment? We ferment milk and it becomes cheese and yogurt. So it undergoes this change. Bacteria is added to it and it turns into a really kind of sour taste. Now, it takes some time to produce a naturally occurring yeast that helps it to rise. Yeast is very important to get dough to puff up, to poof up. If you've ever watched a dough being made, it's a fungus. Yeast is just a fungus. It's a real thing that is capable of converting sugar into alcohol and carbon dioxide, and that's how that works.
Yep, you need yeast to cook those kinds of things. You need yeast if you want to make beer or other alcoholic beverages, I guess. And you need yeast, of course, when you cook bread or when you bake bread. It will help it rise. If you don't have the yeast there, then your bread is just going to be pretty boring, kind of flat.
Hard, and it's just tough.
Yeah.
It's not light and fluffy.
Who wants to eat something like that? You want to have the bread, or you want to have the dough rise when it is baking in the oven, and yeast helps you do that. And Joost shapes the dough into loaves once it's ready. Now, usually if you want to eat a sandwich, of course, you need to have slices of bread from a loaf of bread. So loaves here is the plural. That's just a kind of rectangular shape that you make the dough into. Usually you put it into pans that are in that shape, and you stick them in the oven, and then you bake them that way.
A lot of people have bread machines in Taiwan now.
Yeah, so they probably know more about this than I do.
I did want to mention one big mistake that is very common in Taiwan, and it has to do with bread. You guys tend to call bread 吐司, which means toast, but do not call bread that hasn't been toasted 吐司. That toast means it's been 烤面包. It's been browned in a toaster.
It's actually been toasted.
So it's not toast until you cook the bread in a toaster. What you're saying is a slice of bread. So the loaf is the big portion, and then you cut it into pieces, and each piece is called a slice of bread.
Right. Toasted bread or toast is bread that has been toasted. So, of course, then he makes the bread into loaves. And then he makes small cuts at the top, allowing the dough to rise without cracking. So I guess you put the dough into these pans that are shaped like loaves, and then you can make some small cuts at the top of the dough or the loaves, and that will allow the dough to rise without cracking. If you don't have those cuts, then the dough will rise in the oven, and it will have all these cracks in it.
It'll break apart, yeah.
And it will break apart, and you can't use it. So this is some advice from Joost Hilkemeyer on how to bake the perfect sourdough bread.
Now, after 15 to 20 minutes in the oven, the loaves, and that's the plural form of loaf, L-O-A-F is the singular and loaves is the plural, have a golden brown crust. The crust of bread is the outer part of a loaf of bread. Some people don't like the crust. I love the crust. That's kind of my favorite part. And then a fluffy, light interior. Remember, I was saying to Tom, if it doesn't rise enough and you don't have that yeast to make it rise, then the middle of the bread is really hard. It's not light and fluffy. Fluffy reminds me of kitty cats and their fur. It's very fluffy. So light, very airy. There's a lot of air in it. And the interior of anything is the inside of something.
The interior, right? Interior decorating, for example. And Maeve relishes the tantalizing smell of the freshly baked bread before hungrily polishing it off. To relish something just means to enjoy something.
Oh, yeah.
Really enjoy it, especially if it's wine or food or something like that. A pleasurable situation to relish. I relish our time together, I guess you could say that.
Yeah, you could.
And tantalizing means it's something that tempts you with its flavor. I can't wait to taste that. It's the smell that tantalizes you. Oh, I can't wait to taste that bread. I can't wait to drink that coffee. And then she polishes it off. No, she's not really trying to shine the bread here. To polish something off in this case means to finish something off, especially if you're eating something that is very, very tasty. Who polished off the last piece of cake? I wanted to eat it myself.
Yeah, you're eating the very last part of something. And this is a fairly new phrase. It's more, I would say, it's not slang, but it didn't exist, 100 years ago. If you polish it off, you eat the last part. I wanted to mention, too, that this interior, we might use it to talk about your car's interior. You might want to buy a car with leather seats that has a leather interior. That's kind of how we would use that. Well, now that we've been spending time talking about all this food, I'm starving, but you might want to check this out. You'll get a good look at how all of these foods are made, and you can go on the food adventure with Maeve herself. But in order to do that, you have to tune in to TLC's Food Safari Fire. Right now, guys, we're going to listen one more time to our Chinese teacher.
接下来第3个地方是要看面包。这位面包师傅呢，他有一种特别打造的砖炉。好，提到这个砖炉，它是特别打造的，他用到了一个片语 a specially crafted brick oven。记得哦，有一种复合形容词，就是像这样，你用一个副词后面再用一个 PP， 也就是过去分词组合起来，然后这样子这个所谓的复合形容词比较特别，是因为我们一般看到复合形容词好像2个字中间会有个连字符号，可是如果你这个第一个字是一个副词的话，我们在英文里面好像就习惯把这个连字符号给去掉了，也就是不把它当作是一个字来看，感觉上字面上看到是2个分开的字，不过我们还是视它为一个复合形容词，而且这还蛮常见的哦。比如说我们在英文里面提到 physically challenged， 或者是谈到 visually impaired， 好，或者是再往下读，下面它有说往下后面看到说这个面包是 freshly baked， 这都是有一个副词，然后再加过去分词，记得我们视它为一个复合形容词。接下来看到这个面包哦，这面包师傅他其实是在新南威尔斯这里一个贝里村，而呢他们最有名的就是用天然酵母面包，这个面包非常的香而非常的简单。那如果说你有兴趣的话，大家可以下次拜访这里，然后看一下这个节目哦， TLC 的火烤料理大冒险。好，我们今天就到这边结束，下次见。
That's it for today, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us, and please join us again next time for another edition of our program. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
Bye.